Hi, and welcome to Career Quest. I'm Faith Bischoff. I work with the Next Gen and One Life programs here at Goodwill. I'm joined today by Sasha James, who is a recruiting sourcing specialist for the Grove Park. And today we're going to talk everything about customer service, which I'm sure you talk about a lot. But thank you so much for joining us today, Sasha. And I want to start off by asking you about the hospitality industry. And obviously you can't talk about hospitality working in a hotel without talking about customer service. How would you define customer service? What does it mean to you, and how important is it?
Thank you for having me, for one. So as far as customer service, I define customer service as really the way that you meet guest expectations while still keeping everything in line with this kind of trilogy that we have between, a guest, the company, and yourself as an associate. Doing everything in your power within reasonable means to kind of make the guest happy, but also managing guest expectations when there might be something that we aren't able to fully meet. And just really managing all of that together to provide the best service for a guest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think of it too as kind of going above and beyond.
Yes.
Right. I think probably the people that you have, at least that stay there longer and do really well in their roles, are people that really enjoy it. Right.
Mm-hmm. They genuinely enjoy it. So it's not even that's a hard question for me because, if you're someone who likes to please people and who likes to have that positive feedback and likes to make sure everyone's having a good time, you're naturally going to go above and beyond. Customer service is going to come naturally to you.
Right. So there's so much of the role that you can teach in terms of like daily tasks and duties, but you can't teach being genuinely interested in seeing that your customer gets everything they want and more.
And more. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Absolutely. Can you tell us about a time, Sasha, that you exhibited exemplary customer service?
Yeah. So I can tell you, when I first got hired at the Grove Park Inn, I had a guest of mine that was a regular that worked at the Grove Park, and he had been encouraging me to apply. And he had been coming in for a couple of months and talking to me about it, and I hadn't really considered it. But about 3 months before I did pursue an application, I actually had a guest of mine at a wine bar that I was working at, and it was during lunchtime, and he came in with his wife. He had the Grove Park Inn name tag on, so I remembered that, and I remembered he ordered a bottle of Kermit Lynch Côte de Rhone. The only reason I remember that is because I had just learned about this importer, and my husband had gone to school, and during his wines class, he studied the Côte de Rhone region of France extensively, so I knew a little bit about this bottle.
Yeah.
And it was probably the only bottle that I knew about, honestly. But he came in and he ordered this, and 3 months later, I finally did my application and I attended a job fair at the Grove Park Inn, and the person I actually interviewed with was this gentleman who had ordered this bottle, and I sat down and we started talking, and I looked at him and I was like, "Were you at this restaurant about 3 months ago with your wife? It was around Thanksgiving. Did you order this bottle of wine?" And he was just blown away by the fact that I remembered this, that he was like, "You need to go interview with the Sunset Terrace because this is where I know you're going to be the most happy. It's where you're going to have the best chances for those kind of guest engagement experiences." And that's where I interviewed and was then hired, and here I am. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm speechless over here. Wow. So that story is beautiful in a lot of different ways, but it goes to show that, the customer service that you give one day, you don't know exactly who you're serving all the time, or where they work, or how they're going to recommend you to their friends and family, and how that could lead to something else.
And it goes from, that came natural to me. Nobody taught me to pay attention to those things, but it was just I was genuine in my service and about learning the things that I needed to learn in my role at the time.
Right. And
kind of just paying attention to those things, and it ended up just paying off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I love that story. So, Sasha, we talk a lot about customer service, but I think that there's a difference between like the internal and external customer service. Can you kind of speak to that?
Yeah. So, external customer service, we are obviously always trying to take care of the guest. But I don't think that you can do that if you work in a place where there's no internal customer service. I think we all need to be, and this goes for whatever, industry that you may go into for employment, but everyone needs to be of like service minded. So maybe it's just being timely with your responses on an email, or being respectful of somebody's time in a corporate setting, or just, knowing that you can go and ask a question to anybody internally and you're not going to be received wrong. It's just about just everybody being respectful to one another,
right?
And really acting of service to one another, realizing that we're all working together and just having that mutual respect.
Yeah, I actually I worked on a resort once, and I think in certain times of my stay there, we would have like a really good staff that really meshed well together, and I think that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but people can definitely tell when behind the scenes, like back of house, when things are running smooth and when they're not.
Absolutely.
Even if you're great with your external customer service, if things are crazy back there and really not meshing well, people can definitely tell a difference.
Yeah, and you can feel it when you go to other places. You see the eye rolls, you see the kind of snippy comments that get made. You can feel when somebody is not feeling like respected in their role.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about authenticity. What do you think of when I say authenticity, and how does that kind of tie into, say, working at the Grove Park?
I think authenticity is very important. When I think of authenticity, I think about just being real with yourself and with others, and being honest, not necessarily being mean or tearing people down, but just being authentic in maybe those feelings or those thoughts that you're having. I think from just like, thinking about just a serving role, people can tell if you authentically care about whether they're having a good time, or if you're just trying to sell them things so that you get a higher check average and then bring home more of a tip. People can tell if you really care about the bottle of wine that you're trying to sell them, and if you've actually tried it versus just reading off the back of the label. And I do think I can tell you, I was the ambassador of the Sunset Terrace, and I can tell you from when I went to those ambassador meetings, usually we read off a piece of paper of like what we're working on as a department and what are the challenges we're facing. And I can tell you from working with like my direct supervisor now, one of the things that made me a candidate that was considered for this job is my ability to be authentic in those meetings and be honest and truthful, not just read what somebody wants to say. It's like, yes, here's what we're working on, but here's also why I think this is the problem from what I actually see on the day-to-day in this role. So always being able to kind of maintain that truth within yourself and being able to put that out there, I think company-wide is important. And I think that some of those who are above you in certain positions really appreciate that honesty, because they're used to people painting things as a certain rosy color instead of just being like, no, this is actually what's going on.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example of you showing that like the customer service is part of you, like the helping people and I guess I would call it like being genuine, because some people, I know some people, like, again, to go back to when I worked at a resort, and I would be like super like chipper and ask customers like about their lives and kind of go above and beyond, and some of my peers sometimes would kind of view that as being fake or inauthentic. But I think the difference is
or brown nosing,
right? And it's like, I'm in this role because I actually care, and that's why it's a good role for me. So maybe some people, it's like, oh, if you kind of view it that way, or you're not interested in these kind of things, maybe it's not the
right fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had those conversations with a few people. And I think it's really important to, you have to have that boundary with people, especially those people throw rocks at things that shine sometimes. And to be able to have that within you to be like, no, I actually really like what I'm doing, and I'm sorry that you don't, but maybe you should consider something different, because don't take away my happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to the conversation around like personality types and kind of like what personality is best for a certain role and that kind of stuff. Okay, Sasha, last question I have for you, and I love this question. So in the hospitality industry, obviously there's a lot of, like, you can have a customer service manual, right? And you can list out all these scenarios. But in the job that y'all do day to day, there's a lot of like off the cuff or out of the blue scenarios. How can you kind of talk to the job seeker about navigating some of those, and how important is intuition and all of that?
I mean, you're always going to come up, and this is any role, any job, you're always going to come up with a situation that you don't necessarily know how to handle, or that you're not sure if you did the right thing or if it was too much. I always tell people to trust their gut, because if your values as a person are in line, you're going to do the right thing. I also always tell people to think about how they would necessarily want to be treated in that situation, and kind of put themselves in another person's shoes. But I also think, you have to be empowered to make decisions on the fly, and hopefully you're equipped with even the most basic knowledge to know what you can and can't do, kind of what we can and cannot accommodate. And if you can't make the decision or you don't feel comfortable with that decision, ask somebody, go get somebody, ask somebody who's your peer. But, hopefully just know that you're working wherever you're working, that you are trusted and empowered to make the right decision.
Wow. I could not have said that better myself. That was amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sasha, for all your insight into customer service and hospitality. And I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.